You think you know Roman mythology? All those epic tales of gods and heroes? Well, get ready, because today we're peeling back the layers of legend to uncover the shocking truths hidden beneath. These aren't just stories. They're echoes of real and often dark historical events. Let's start with a big one, the legendary founding of Rome itself. The story of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers suckled by a she-wolf, is iconic. Most people dismiss it as pure fiction. But what if it's a distorted memory of something much grittier? Archaeologists have found evidence of early settlements on the Palatine Hill dating back to the 8th century BC, right when the myth is set. More chillingly, the story's fratricide Romulus killing Remus might reflect the brutal political reality of Rome's founding. Early societies were often forged through violence and power struggles. The myth of a brother's murder could be a symbolic way of explaining and justifying the ruthless ambition required to build an empire from a single hill. The she-wolf? Perhaps a symbol for a local tribe or even a real woman whose name meant wolf, a common occurrence. The myth sanitized a brutal beginning. Next, let's talk about the Vestal Virgins, the priestesses of Vesta, goddess of the hearth. They were revered, held as sacred figures who guarded Rome's eternal flame. The myth says that if a Vestal virgin broke her vow of chastity, the flame would falter and disaster would strike Rome. The punishment? Being buried alive. Sounds like a gruesome fairy tale, right? Wrong. This was horrifyingly real. Historical records from writers like Livy and Pliny describe several instances where Vestals accused of breaking their vows were sealed in underground chambers with a small amount of food and water left to die. This wasn't just a story to scare people. It was a state-sanctioned ritual killing. It served as a terrifying warning and a way to publicly purge perceived corruption, reinforcing the state's control over religious and social purity. The myth was the justification for a very real horror. Number 3 takes us into the arena, the myth of the gladiator who could win his freedom. We've all seen the movies. A slave is forced to fight, and through incredible skill and bravery, he earns his liberty in front of a cheering crowd. This sounds like pure Hollywood, a feel-good story to sweeten a bloody sport, but it actually happened. Gladiators were mostly slaves or prisoners, but a small percentage were volunteers. And for the enslaved, there was a genuine, albeit slim, path to freedom. A gladiator who survived several years of combat and became a crowd favorite could be awarded the rudis, a wooden sword symbolizing his discharge from service. He became a freedman. This wasn't common, of course. Most died. But the possibility was real. It was a brilliant piece of social engineering by the Roman state, giving a sliver of hope to the condemned, which made them fight harder and create a better spectacle. The myth of heroic freedom was a tool of control. Our fourth myth is one of the darkest, the Sibylline books. Legend says an ancient prophetess, the Cumaean Sibyl, offered to sell 9 books of prophecy to Rome's last king. When he refused the high price, she burned 3 and offered the remaining 6 for the same price. He refused again, she burned 3 more, and finally, the terrified king bought the last 3 books for the original exorbitant price. These books were then consulted by the Senate in times of extreme crisis. A strange folk tale? Not entirely. These books were real. They were a collection of prophetic verses that Rome's leaders genuinely consulted to guide state decisions, especially during plagues, military disasters, or bad omens. They were kept under strict guard and interpreted by a special college of priests. While the origin story with the Sibyl is likely a legend to give the books an air of mystical authority, the books themselves were a very real and powerful political tool used for centuries to manage public panic and legitimize state action. Finally, we have the myth of the Bacchanalia, wild, ecstatic festivals for Bacchus, the god of wine. The myths paint a picture of joyous, liberating parties with dancing and drinking. But in 186 BC, the Roman Senate saw something much more sinister. The historian Livy tells us that the state launched a massive crackdown on the cult of Bacchus. Why? They claimed these gatherings weren't just parties. They were secret societies engaged in a whirlwind of criminal activities, conspiracies, and moral depravity under the cover of religion. Thousands were arrested and many executed. While the Senate's claims were likely exaggerated propaganda to crush a popular, non-traditional cult that was outside their control, the core event was real. The state's brutal suppression of the Bacchanalia shows how what starts as a myth or religious practice can be perceived as a real threat to power, leading to very real and very deadly consequences. So the next time you hear a Roman myth, remember to look closer. Hidden behind the gods and monsters, you might just find the shadowy truths of history. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed uncovering these secrets, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more dives into the past. See you next time.